All right. What we're going to do is have a brief recap of our Lost Minds D&D session. That would be session 8 that we played on June 21st, a week and a half ago. And let's see what we can recall happened. Um, just the day after you visited Agatha the Banshee, who was terrifying and unhelpful, um, except that she said that maybe you could be able, since she could not give you speak with dead, she said that maybe the old necromancer by the owl well might be able to help you. Um, One thing you noticed in the midst of being terrified and more or less chased off by her was that she had a green jewel that looked like similar to the red jewel that you already took from Harbin, the town master of Phandalin. Tempting, but scary, dangerous. You took off and went on to the ruins of the old owl well, um, where there was a clown tent and a bunch of dead things. And as you got up into there, little bit of fighting, but basically stopping all of it was this old, also dead wizard character named Wacht. Uh, and he talked you out of fighting and killing all of his zombies, and we seem to have control over, and said, figured out what you were looking for, said maybe he could help. But in order to do that, um, you he would be able to help you by casting Speak with Dead on Sildar or Sildar's head, um, and said that he would do that if you could bring him two corpses. He was also very curious about your spider vial, which you showed him, and he looked it over and kept it. Um, and he said that what he would need in order to do this would be to have a couple of corpses, and he would need Sildar's head in order to speak with his head. Hmm. So you were like, okay, and you remembered talk of orcs over by Wyvern Tor, up above Coneyberry, the ruins of Coneyberry, where you've kind of been circulating around this last session and a half. So you went over there and you found, sort of these bluffs up and a cave, seriously heavily guarded by several orcs. You saw 7, but you had the vibe that there was even more in there. Too many to fight. It looked like a serious crew. And so you went back to the Necromancers to rest because tired, especially after your encounter with um, Agatha the Banshee. And he said that you were welcome to spend the night over in the old ruined stairway tower, or but that you would have to spend the night with this big, giant, creepy, sort of bubbling mass of zombie. You don't even know what it is. Terrifying, scary, bad. But you spend the night there. Um, and the next morning, you head back out on the Triboar Trail, going west to Phandalin to go recover Sildar's head. Um, and also, you had this idea that you would kind of lure the orcs out after you, some of them, so that you wouldn't have such an overwhelming force against you. Maybe you could ambush them later on. Cute idea. Sure enough, they came on out. After you, Benjamin saw them flying overhead. But they hid, probably because they saw Benjamin tracking them. So, seems now that the orcs are stalking you. Tricky. And, yeah, you continued walking. Just about twilight, one of the things you noticed just on the north side of the trail was this looming shape in a tree. You were not sure what it was, but tree in the branches, maybe in the lower branches, something big, something scary. It was all a sort of a silhouette when you decided that you were not going to deal with that and you left. And you just said, we're going to walk around, and you kind of toot south and around. But it was funny was you were walking around and you looked back, the thing was no longer in the tree. So that was disconcerting. But you kept on walking. And over the next few hours, continue along the Triboar, making good time. You were suddenly confronted by this cloaked figure, which you recognized back from the Goblin Cave. Um, this Drow witch, wizard, you're not sure. She introduced herself as Nezzar, and with her was a large looming shape of a giant, terrifying spider. Probably that giant looming creature that was in the tree back a couple of hours ago. And Nezzar said that she wanted her box and her lens. You very cleverly, Renora took the lead, saying, "What box? What? I don't know about any box or lens." And she bought none of it. She was like, "Don't bullshit me." But she offered to make a trade because she had your cousin Gundren, Elio's cousin. And so tomorrow, midnight, she was interested in making a trade, box and lens, for an exchange for cousin Gundren. And that was interesting. So what you did was said, sure, with your fingers crossed behind your backs, because you have no intention of giving up that box, but you are definitely interested in getting Gundren back. So you both went your separate ways. Now, presumably, you are being stalked by Nezzar, her giant, terrifying spider, and a bunch of orcs who may or may not be working with Nezzar. That was not clear, but a lot of people know what you're up to. When you got back to Phandalin by the early afternoon, there was a big hullabaloo going on, something happening, and you went over to the Sleeping Giant Inn where everyone was gathered, and facing off right on the doorstep was Trilena, the head of the Stonehill Inn, the owner of the Stonehill Inn, and Favria, Kaimos's girlfriend, boss, not clear. Anyway, they're fighting. Trilena's accusing, like, my son is missing, and what did you do about it? You took my son. And Favria is like, no, that didn't happen at all. And she started pulling out her crossbows to prove the point. But before anything got, well, into fighting, Kaimos approached and stepped between them. And he learned that Harbin, Townmaster Harbin, and Graeli, the priestess who had sent you out to Agatha and walked the Necromancer, were dead, both of them. Corpses found in Harbin's office, desiccated, and that Pip, Trilena's son, had gone missing since yesterday. Very concerning, very scary. Fabria said, not me, and was ready to fight about it when your crew stepped in and said, wait, wait, wait. We think actually this is Nezzar. Um, because spider venom. This is your theory. So with um, Toblin, Pip's father, Trilena's husband, and Trilena, you all went over to Tresendar Manor to see if you could find Pip. And you went up through. You didn't find anything on the main opens of the old ruins, but you found a storm door in the back. And you opened that up, down the stairs, along, and opening up into a storage cellar. And in the storage cellar below you, so it was kind of like this walkway around the edges, but then stairways down. You found a few doors out and a few barrels and the cistern. It was like a 15-foot long, 10-foot wide still pool with a little bit of a some sort of fountain dropping in from the far wall with what looked like still clear water. And Elio noticed this string that went over the edge of the cistern down into the water. You went over there and you started pulling it up, and it seemed like maybe a bag or a satchel was under the water. And just as it was coming up to the surface, exploding out was a huge, like a water snake, water tentacle. But I mean, we're talking about like made out of water, really terrifying, big, like 15 feet tall, instantly wrapping around Elio and starting to crush her with its coils. And then it turned on the party and started attacking you all. And you were all kind of gasped, putting it together, finding a shape together. And quickly the thing extended even another round of tentacles, coiled around Toblin, crushing him and killing him to jelly. And obviously Trilena was devastated. Toblin was dead. And you all rallied and went after the snake, pushing it back, and it leapt back, and you hurt it. And it jumped back down into the cistern in retreat. That's the last thing that happened to you, and the big question is, what's next? I'll see you all on July 4th to continue the adventure.